Hello, in this video we will discuss about the thyroid hormone, so that is important lesson about the endocrinology, and we will also understand about the cellular mechanism, the signaling pathway of the thyroid hormone. So let's begin to understand from here. This is the person after the sympathetic nervous system activation as well as the thermogenesis due to the cold weather. So there are many reasons which that will stimulate the higher brain cortex to stimulate the hypothalamus, and hypothalamus will stimulate the pituitary gland. So let's draw here is the brain, which that's contain different parts, but we will focus on the higher brain cortex and the hypothalamus. Hypothalamus is below the thalamus in the brain, which that will give transmit the signal from higher brain cortex through environment as well as our body. So in this way the positive feedback will be occur, and in this way the pituitary gland will be stimulated after the hypothalamus stimulation. So the hypothalamus will stimulate, and endocrine secretory cell will stimulate to the cell of the pituitary gland at the anterior lobe. So here is the environment, for example, cold, warm, food, fasting, and fight and flight response will give the signal to the higher brain cortex, and higher brain cortex will transmit the signal to the hypothalamus, and hypothalamus will stimulate the pituitary gland. So here is the pituitary gland, which contain neuro and secretory cell in the hypothalamus, and the infundibulum is here, and here is the neurohypophysis, and this is the adenohypophysis. In this way, the adenohypophysis is very important for the secretion of the. So the hypothalamus will secrete the thyrotropic releasing factor. After the thyrotropic releasing factor will stimulate the cell of the adenohypophysis of the pituitary, which that will be able to stimulate the thyroid stimulating hormone. So after the thyroid stimulating hormone will bind with the thyroid gland with the thyroid stimulating hormone receptor. After the binding with the thyroid stimulating hormone receptor with the thyroid stimulating hormone, so it will give the signal to the thyroid gland for secretion of the triiodothyronine and thyroxine into the blood. So that is why it is known as the endocrine hormone. So here I am drawing the thyroid stimulating hormone, which that is stimulate into the blood circulatory system. After this is supposed person which contain brain and pituitary gland. After the transmission of the signal from the thyroid stimulating hormone production from the brain, so in this way go into the blood circulatory system. After the go into the blood circulatory system, we can say that. But here is the anatomical aspect is here: brain, pituitary gland, and thyroid cartilage here, and thyroid gland is here, which that is a lobe-like structure, and trachea and sternum and clavicle you can see in this diagram. So here is the receptor of the thyroid, which that is the thyroid stimulating hormone receptor. After the binding with the thyroid stimulating hormone receptor will produce the thyroxine, and it can be also convert, and the genetic gene expression will be occur, and to produce thyroxine and triiodothyronine. So the triiodothyronine will convert from the thyroxine in the presence of iodinase enzyme 1 and 2 for the decreasing of the iodine content. So in this way the 3 iodine content. Here is the diagram which that is not showing, but this is the missing for me. So here is the inhibitions selenoenzymes. Selenium containing enzyme will be inhibited from the gene will be expressed, so the gene will not express to inhibit. So in this way the hyperthyroidism will be occur because it is the inhibitor for the production of T3. So the excess of T3 will lead to hyperthyroidism, will lead to high energy consumption and catabolism. So here is I am drawing the person which that is contain this T3 and T4 will target the different tissue, for example heart tissue, cardiac tissue for heartbeat, and the liver for the gluconeogenesis as well as the glycogenolysis, and on the other hand the glycogenesis also, and adipose tissue and bones. So on the other hand, let's begin to understand here is the tissue which that is when move into the iodine inside the thyroid hormone transporter, and this is the blood circulatory system will move into the cell. For example, this cell can be muscle or adipose tissue or many more. So let's begin to understand the T4 will move inside from the thyroid hormone transporter T4 and T3. So when it will be move inside, the diiodinase enzyme will convert the T4 into the T3, and D3 is enzyme which that is used for the inactive RT3. So this is the general model of thyroid hormone generation and action we will discuss here. So this is inside is the cytoplasm, and there are many receptors are present, but this receptor will function differently, but we can understand as well. This is the receptor, basically is the plasma membrane protein containing intrinsic protein. So here is the nuclear membrane. So this T3 will move inside into the cell and move into the nucleus. After the moving into the nucleus, the DNA contains different genes, and this gene is used for the transcription. So for translation. So here is the T3 receptor are present, which that will be bound with the retinoic acid receptor. So let's begin to understand during the inactive, because if the thyroid hormone will not bind, so the inactivation. So there are different genes. Here is the thyroid hormone responding element TRE. This thyroid hormone responding element will be inactive during the before the binding with the T3. So before the binding, it will not express. So here is the HADC. This is the recruit co-receptor, and their associated histone deacetylases are present in this way, which that is used for the deacetylation and acetylation for the expression of the gene. When acetyl group will be added, so the expression, while the methyl group will be added, so the expression will not occur. So here is the RX or retinoic X receptor is bound with the thyroid receptor for the transcription receptor. So here is the basal transpositional part. So the basal transcriptional part, not transposition, transcriptional. So this transcriptional part is very important, is as a promoter, will promote the gene, and the basically is the target gene. So Aries will not bind the thyroid hormone, so the gene will not express. So this is the basal transcriptional machinery, is the basal transcriptional part, promoter, which that is very important, and it will be activate after the binding with the T3. And but here is a before binding, but after binding we are discussing now. So the here is the again the thyroid hormone response element will bind with the thyroid receptor, the receptor with the T3, and bind with the basal transcription machinery promoter region, bind with the co-activator, the associated histone acetyl transferase enzyme, which that is used for the transformation of the acetyl group for transcription. So the activation of the gene, acetyl group will be added, so the activation of the gene, while the methyl group when added after the co-repressor will be occur. So in this way the methyl group will not allow to transcribe the gene. So this is the target gene. After the target gene will produce the messenger RNA after the transcription. This is known as the transcription. And transcription will lead to move the nuclear pore to move outside the messenger RNA with the poly-A tail and 5' cap. So in this way, this messenger RNA will go under the binding with the ribosome as well as transfer RNA. Again, the translation is known as binding with the transfer RNA one by one to produce the polypeptide. And this polypeptide is the synthesis of new protein. For example, let's begin to understand what is the meaning of this. So the synthesis of new protein will lead to lead to express something, and the metabolism as well as also the part of catabolism, and there are a lot of catabolic pathway. So let's here is the human sensitive lipase and kinase enzyme used for the lipogenesis, lipolysis, and the amylase enzyme used during the parasympathetic nervous system will secrete for the digestion of the carbohydrate, and glycogen and glycogenolysis will be occur, and glycogen synthase enzyme will be low. While here is the different channel protein can be synthesized: GPCR, G-coupled protein receptor, and tyrosine receptor, and GLUT4 channel for influx of the glucose for more metabolism. So the glucose will move more inside for the more metabolic heat production, and ATPase also. So here let's begin to understand the angiogenesis and cardiac output will be increased. Due to these things, synthesis of new protein will, and the tissue blood flow will be increased, heart rate will be increased, heart strength will be increased, and respiration will be increased. In this way, the anabolism will be decreased while the catabolism will be increased, because the sympathetic nervous system will be activated also for this activity. So the sympathetic nervous system will lead to non-shivering thermogenesis and also the shivering thermogenesis. So shivering thermogenesis is not involving the thyroid hormone, but the non-shivering thermogenesis will involve for production of more ATP from GLUT4 channel efficiency. So here is the metabolism. The mitochondria will be increased. The number of mitochondria for respiration, sodium, potassium, ATPase, and oxygen consumption will be more, and glucose absorption will be more, and gluconeogenesis will be more, and glycogenolysis will be more, and lipolysis will be more, and protein synthesis will be more. Basal metabolic rate will be increased. In this way, remember about that. This all things is required the protein, and this protein will be translated from the thyroid hormone associated gene, which that will be transcribed to translate that protein and that enzyme for the synthesis and catabolic requirement. So that in summary, we will discuss the regulation of gene expression by thyroid hormone is mediated via thyroid hormone receptors and basically is the um, TRS AR DNA binding transcriptional factors that function as molecular switch in response to ligand TRS, and can activate or repress gene transcription depending on promoter context and ligand binding status. So these all things about the thyroid hormone activity with the cellular pathway. I hope you are getting this concept. Thanks for watching. Please make sure to subscribe, like, and share this video to your fellows. Bye.